always from the heart of the city, and now on demand 24/7 on the CHFI website. This is the soundtrack to something we positively cannot get along without. And I'm Don Jackson, around the world on the internet. Robert Heinlein, from the notebooks of Lazarus Long, published by Putnam, wrote, and I quote, "A human being should be able to change a diaper, plan an invasion, con a ship, write a sonnet, balance accounts, build a wall, set a bone, comfort the dying, take orders, give orders, cooperate, act alone, pitch manure, solve equations, analyze a new problem, program a computer, cook a tasty meal, fight efficiently, die gallantly." Specialization is for insects. Unquote. Robert Heinlein from the notebooks of Lazarus Long. It's interesting to note that some of the things he mentioned in this brave new world need a mouse to accomplish them. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Walter Egan with Magnet and Steel, an apt description of some of what makes up a computer. And Eric Clapton to change the world. And to do that in this day and age, you definitely need a mighty mouse. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. I remember my first virus on my very first computer. The virus came from a computer store that was installing new software for my mouse. That's when I got the stoned virus. Being computer illiterate at the time, I had no idea what was going on. All I knew was that the screen seemed to be melting before my very eyes. But a virus isn't the only thing trying to find its way into our computers. There's spam, phishing attacks, and spyware. Big business for the many antivirus companies. There used to be a time that you didn't need a mouse to listen to this show. And now you do. This hour there's a mouse in my house, and this one I can't get rid of. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. You can't easily reset the digital clock in your computer unless you have one. A mouse, that is. And that was Coldplay and Daniel Powter bemoaning some kind of crash at the end of a bad day. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. This is called Bewilderment.com by Brian H. Gent and featured in the '06 edition of the Fireside book, chosen by David Hope, published by D.C. Thompson and Company. In this modern day and age, computers seem to be the rage. You need to play your CD-ROM or contact somebody.com. Surf the net and don't relax. Have a printout send a fax. And when you think all help is gone, the answer's simple. Just click on. Find it on the World Wide Web and watch the info flow and ebb. For everything will be just fine if it's available online. Now, this may seem a platitude or somewhat strange, my attitude, but being old, I am bemused, and by the jargon, quite confused. For though it's done with great panache, why is oblique now /? And surely once it was the cat. Now it's the mouse sits on the mat. So count your pixels as you play, for it seems they're here to stay. But whilst you with the systems grapple on Mr. Macintosh's Apple, I'll just stay here on my own and play my wind-up gramophone. A poem called Bewilderment.com by Brian H. Jett and featured in the '06 edition of the Fireside Book by David Hope and published by D.C. Thompson and Company. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. John Mayer with No Such Thing, Dido and Thank You, and Bruce Cockburn, Wondering Where the Lions Are, probably chased away by a mighty mouse. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Here's another writer reminiscing about a time before the mouse. It's called Life Before the Computer. It's author unknown. It reminds us that there was once a time when memory was something you lost with age, and now in this computer-driven world, it means something entirely different. An application was for employment. A program was a TV show. A cursor used profanity. A keyboard was a piano. Compress was something you did to garbage, not something you did to a file. And if you unzipped anything in public, you'd be in jail for a while. Log on was adding wood to a fire. Hard drive was a long trip on the road. A mouse pad was where a mouse lived, and a backup happened to your commode. Cut you did with a pocket knife, paste you did with glue. A web was a spider's home, and a virus was the flu. I guess I'll stick to my pad and paper and the memory in my head. I hear nobody's been killed in a computer crash, but when it happens, they wish they were dead. How true. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Seal and People Asking Why. And Sting, If I Ever Lose My Faith in You. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. You know, it wouldn't surprise me to learn that future generations will even include the computer in their prayers. This was also sent to me via email. It's author unknown. Every evening, as I'm lying here in bed, this tiny little prayer keeps running through my head. God bless my mom and dad, and bless my little pup, and look out for my sister when things aren't looking up. And God, there's one more thing I wish that you could do. Hope you don't mind me asking. But please bless my computer, too? Now, I know that's not normal to bless a motherboard, but just listen a second while I explain to you, my lord. You see, that little metal box contains more to me than odds and ends. Inside those small components rest 100 of my best friends. I know for sure they like me by the kindness that they give. And this little scrap of metal is how I travel to where they live. By faith is how I know them, much the same as you. I share in what life brings them. From that, our friendship grew. Please take an extra minute from your duties up above to bless this scrap of metal that's filled with so much love. A computer prayer, a magnet, and some steel, and in some ways, a whole lot of love. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Billy Joel, Just the Way You Are, The Beatles, In the End, and In My Life. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. The reason for all this hour? You know that mouse that you're attached to every day for so many hours during and after work? November 17th is the anniversary of the patent for the computer mouse. From our vantage point, on November the 17th in 2009, it seems like such a long time ago. And finally this hour, this excerpt from the 1998 edition of the Friendship Book of Francis Gay, published by D.C. Thompson and Company. And I quote, "We seem to live in a machine age, becoming ever more dependent on dishwashers and microwave ovens at home, computers in the office, and so on. However, there are some things machines can never do." I heard a nice story in Thought for the Day slot on the radio. An old lady was standing patiently in a long queue at her post office. Her neighbor, finding she was only waiting to buy a few stamps, exclaimed, "You've surely no need to stand in the queue. There's a stamp machine over there." "I know," came the answer, "but it won't ask me how my arthritis is." We still need the human touch, and a kind word is worth waiting for. Unquote. And no click of a mouse can get you that. Not yet, anyway. Lovers and Other Strangers. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.